All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Mets Weekly. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X for pregame coverage of the Mets versus Dodgers Game 2 of the National League Championship Series. Now, lots of things to discuss, of course, things that we don't want to see in Game 2, and there are a lot of things based off of Game 1. But before we get into it, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel if you had not already for live recordings of the Mets Weekly podcast following every Mets postseason game, which is our post-game show. For those of you watching live or on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. After tonight's game, of course, we'll be going live for episode number 96 of the Mets Weekly podcast following tonight's game. For those of you in the live chat right now, I want to let you guys know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff regarding this team. And if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show. We'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going throughout the show. Make sure to follow us on X and TikTok for future content over there in the off season. We just wrapped up Frank's post-game thoughts on every Mets regular season game. You guys know the drill by now, titled the Mets Frankly Postgame, of course. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes of the podcast that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that these are recorded. So without further ado, let's get into this pregame show. And let's just say we are coming off of a game one that is hopefully forgot about throughout the Mets clubhouse, because that was an absolute disaster of a game from all angles. Now, Frank, you weren't here for that, so, a little bit of a reflect on last night. Not fun at all. Was not a fun game by all means. There was pretty much nothing positive to come from that game, and it basically just showed you the Dodgers are a good team and they came to play.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's tough when your offense gets shut down and you're like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe at least our pitching was okay. No, I mean that was the case. Like I said, it just everything went wrong. There's nothing to really be encouraged by, honestly. I mean, no one really had a good performance. You want to throw in Danny Young, maybe, but other than that, just like we said, everything went wrong. It's just literally everything. I mean, the starting pitching disaster we'll get into. The bullpen was not good. The base running wasn't good. Hitting wasn't good. Defense wasn't good. Literally every aspect of baseball, they played poorly. And luckily for them, this is a 7 game series and not a 3 game set or a 5 game set where you do have that time to, kind of, like you said, get rid of it, just kind of get back on track. And today is the biggest game to me. I feel like, you have to take advantage of this so and so bullpen game. That is really a marquee opportunity for you because, like we talked about yesterday, the Dodgers just have so many guys out. Like, listen, it could have been Tyler Glasnow last night. It probably should have been. And then you'd be facing maybe Clayton Kershaw today or something. You know what I mean? Like, it could just have been such a tougher matchup than what you're getting. You got to take advantage of that. Like, you have got to win today. If you could get the split here and then go into Citi Field with a split, you have a much better chance. If you go down 2-0 and you lose this game, it gets really tough to pull it off. So this one is a must win. And I think just right away looking at it, considering how poor the offense was, to not change personnel or batting order at all, I think is quite a choice, in my opinion. I feel like we talk about there's maybe a couple different things you could try. And I feel like the offense was just so bad yesterday to go to the same exact group. I feel like that's not ideal, especially considering the matchup you have here in this bullpen game with the Dodgers. As far as like, okay, they're probably going to wait until Winker's up to just go to Banda. So I feel like they already have the counter lined up for you. And so what you're going to do, you're going to take Winker out of the second inning. So I feel like just overall, I don't love the lineup right off the rip.
I personally am not really as frustrated with the lineup as of right now. Like, I think that when you look at it from different substitutions that they could possibly make from this bullpen game, it makes sense to just start off with the same unit that you had here and then just like interchange things in and out. I understand that, like, um, you know, in sources of the lefty righty, you're kind of screwing yourself in the sense of with Jesse Winker, who we know is not favored against left-handed pitching. You go to somebody like JD Martinez, who can hit lefty and right-handed pitching. well, but I feel like this is probably the best way it's designed, mainly because the Mets opted to have a bigger bench as compared to their bullpen going into this National League Championship Series. Would I have moved Marte down? Possibly, yes. Even though he had some of the best swings against Flaherty yesterday, didn't result in anything. That doesn't matter. But when it comes to the overall lineup right now, Winker, I probably just would have put in the 5 hole. Marte, I probably would have put below Iglesias, but you also have that bottom 3 as well in a certain detail that has not faced Brazier before, and they also haven't faced many of these Dodgers relievers in general. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. I don't know if our connection is a little bit spotty right now. For me, it says that the connection's a little spotty. So guys, let us know in the chat if we're glitching or going in and out in regards to that. But let's just say there is a lot of demons that need to be a redeeming point for the Mets today in regards to somebody like Sean Manaea, who, even though he is a completely different pitcher now, and I have more confidence in him than I would ever do now, since he has been great in this postseason so far. Against the Dodgers, he's had quite a rough career. He has had about like 11 appearances, earned run average over 7. Like, we'll see in regards to what happens terms of the matchups. If he does pitch around the top of this order, of course, there is a little bit of a change here. So they're definitely having Freeman move down at the cleanup spot, so you don't have them all bunched together. I guess that it's most likely Teoscar Hernandez batting third, mainly because we have a lefty on the mound, so it makes sense, obviously. But when it comes to the regards to how they play out this bullpen game, Ryan Brazier is going to be the starter. He has not pitched that much this year, but overall he has been solid. But there are some relative weaknesses to this Dodger bullpen that the Mets do need to exploit, because if they don't exploit them, we're going to be in some tough shit going into Game 3 and going into a 2-0 hole. But I do trust that Manaea can keep us in this game. I think pretty much the goal for Manaea is, don't do what Senga did yesterday. That was an absolute disaster, and hopefully, you get that type of quality from him. I'm not really asking for like the 7 shutout, because that's kind of impossible against this type of team. But when it comes to the length, you're definitely counting on that from Sean Manaea, something you have gotten in the postseason. You've gotten that a lot ever since he made those adjustments to the arm angle. But we'll see in terms of how they kind of adjust to this. What are you looking at for Sean Manaea on his end? What do you think, Frank?
So, like we talked about with the Dodgers and not chasing, I feel like that's something that Manaea has got to really work on. And his last start against the Phillies, the only thing that he did wrong was those walks later on in the outing that led to that traffic, made much more tougher ABs. I feel like Manaea needs to trust his stuff here. I mean, he's made the adjustments. He's had a really great season. So overall, I just feel like he just needs to stick with that and not walk these batters. He needs to be more aggressive, and definitely don't walk that bottom half of the order. Like, that's just a key for every starter, every game, every pitcher. Do not have Ohtani, Betts, Teoscar, Freeman come up with men on base, because any of those guys could bring them in a swing of a bat at any moment. So that really is the key for me and Manaea, is just being aggressive. And in order to work deep into the game, he does need to be aggressive. If he's falling behind in counts, if he's walking batters, if he's hitting batters, and everyone's having a long AB, he's not going to be able to work deep into the game. And with how yesterday went, and how much the Mets used the bullpen, they need him to go deep into today's game. So they're asking a lot of him. He's in a tough spot, no doubt. They've put maximum pressure on him with the decision that they made yesterday. So, you know what? He's pitched like our ace. Since Senga's been out, Manaea has stepped up to be the ace. And still, for Sean, he is going to opt out of his contract. He's going to be looking for a big money deal. And the way he's pitched so far in his postseason, he's earned that. And there's another opportunity to maybe add to that dollar amount or lessen that dollar amount, because you know what? This is one of the biggest stages you could possibly have against the Dodgers in LA. People are worried about his previous postseason numbers against the Dodgers. I understand the concerns, but you know what? He struggled against the Phillies when he was with the Padres in the postseason too. It's a different pitcher,
Yeah.
different environment, just a lot of things that are different now.
All right. Well, I think that the connection is okay on our end. It might flip in and out. I will have to probably search for any solutions because it's more on my end for some reason because I think I'm considered the host in this one. So we're gonna have to figure that out. But luckily, this is not going out on audio, so it's not gonna sound like crap in your ears if it goes out. So, anyways, hopefully that it's all been resolved. I just did a refresh of everything. But in regards to anything going on for this game, obviously with Sean Manaea, we are expecting a lot from him, especially with the decision that they made with Kodai Senga. And I did want to talk about it for a second because I think we all had like a really a decent amount of time to sleep on it. Let's just say they asked about Kodai Senga's health regarding the dip in the velo. He just was not sharp whatsoever. Um, in regards to game 5, it seems to be very unknown of what the status is going to be. If he is unable to start for game 5, it most likely will be David Peterson to take the ball there, but they're going to have to give him a lot of rest throughout that turn through the rotation, considering he did pitch last night. But in regarding, to Senga and the rest of this rotation, weighing down a lot of pressure in regards to that. I mean, it really, I really do have somewhat of a concern as to where if you're really shortening these outings with him and he wasn't even able to get into the third inning, I think there's a little bit of a concern as to where, yes, you could get the volume if he says he's healthy, but like it still just seems like a ramp up period for him right now. And I don't know how that's going to bode well. I have confidence that he's a good pitcher. I know that if he is healthy, he's going to be good, but I do have a little bit of concerns about his status right now. And, kind of putting that aside for the playoffs right now, this is not the time to be worrying about your top pitcher's health right now. And, they could go to him for game 5. It possibly could happen. But if this happens again, it's time to rest up for the rest of the season. Rest up until spring training. Like because for some reason he just did not look sharp. There was nothing promising from Senga whatsoever last night. And I feel like that's going to definitely have a factor on somebody like Sean Manaea today. Obviously, it's going to have a factor on even Severino and Jose Quintana. We'll see what happens in regards to the rotation with that. But do you think it's possible that Senga is just not healthy right now? I mean, I don't think it's a far fetch that he isn't, because he did not look comfortable for all 30 pitches he threw yesterday.
So Steve Gelbs had a report about about Kodai Senga, about his mechanics felt off prior to his start. So before he even took the mound in Los Angeles, he already knew something was up with his mechanics, that things weren't going the way they're supposed to. And you could tell his ghost fork, his best pitch was not there. He was spiking all of his secondary pitches. So he had nothing going on. And we talked about, even if Senga did feel great and his mechanics were good, health was good, you still knew he wasn't going to go far in the game. We had said that maybe you should have started Sean Manaea in game 1 anyway.
Yeah.
And now, and going to start knowing that Senga's mechanics are not good and that Senga is meticulous about his mechanics, which Gelb says in his report, you still started him. I don't understand it, to be honest. Like, if you knew that this was not going to go well and his velo was down and everything like that, like, why even make the start? If you knew before the game even was going on, a day before the game was even going on, why would he even make the start? You had other options. It wasn't going to mess up anything, because it's like we always say, if you're not healthy, if you're not actually going to help the team, don't play. Because in this instance, when you're only working a little over an inning, you ended up hurting the team more than you're helping, when you have to say, okay, Reed Garrett, one of our best relievers, now go an inning and a third, or inning and 2/3 in the second and third inning, and when we really don't need it. And now David Peterson, he's out too. So it's like, I don't know. If you're going to have to burn Peterson anyway, you might as well just let Peterson make the start, not burn everyone else in the process. Like, I just feel like it's kind of one of those instances where two wrongs don't make a right here. And if his mechanics don't get sorted out, I'm not having to make another start. Why are we doing this? Why are we going to automatically put ourselves in a bad spot? Now, are they going to give McGill the ball instead? I mean, this is just like we said, this is not the time for this. You know what? This really is not the time to be doing this kind of thing and having this go awry. So, you know what? We've had Manaea been good, Severino's been good. And, by all accounts, as much as we've criticized him, Quintana's been good this postseason. I mean, he's gotten the job
Yeah.
done. The Dodgers would be a god awful matchup for him because they don't chase. But I think overall, like these guys, they've gotten far without him. So I understand if he's healthy, if everything's right, he is your best pitcher. But right now, he's just not that guy. So he shouldn't get that treatment of, oh, well, it's Senga, so no matter what, he still needs to pitch. Like, no, if this is what's going to happen, it's not worth it. He was walking everybody, like I said, spiking it. He couldn't top 95 on the fastball. We know that this is a guy that has 98 to potential 100 a possibility on the fastball. If he's not topping 95, I mean, I don't know what he's going to fool anybody with. He can't throw a quality strike. If he does, it's right down the middle. I mean, we talk about just doing everything wrong. He did everything wrong you could do as a pitcher yesterday.
7 strikes. I mean, he threw 7 strikes that entire time. Especially in that first inning, he was all over the place. It was a terrible outing. He was awful. And, they did ask him if he is healthy. He said he's 100% healthy. I feel ready to go next time. I mean, we talked about it. If your ace wants the ball, you give him the ball in that certainty. And we talked about it of him, prepping his mechanics the way that he did throughout the season while he was rehabbing. And it seemed to be the setback for them regarding his rehab. If the mechanics, as we said, what was it? Did you say Steve Gelb said this? If the mechanics...
Yeah, he tweeted it yesterday after the game.
If he said that they're like, he said he felt off prior to this start, that's where I'm going into the range of like, this is a little irresponsible on the part of Senga, because he's kind of taking the initiative to say, okay, I'm ready to go. But before the start started, again, it's easy that there was something off with him. It's not even just the results in the way he just did not look comfortable on the mound for all 30 pitches that he threw. He could not command the zone. He could not expand the zone with his forkball, could not get that thing over. And the velo was down. Everything that could have gone wrong for Kodai Senga, bouncing pitches the way that he did. He even had a clock violation. He was all over the place. It was bad. It was such an awful outing. The worst outing I think I've ever seen him have in a Mets uniform. That was by far awful. I think that there is a little bit behind this in regard to this where, maybe there are adjustments that are made and he'll be fine in Game 5, but it all really depends on, are the Mets down 3-1? Are the Mets tied 2-2? What's the deal when it comes to Game 5 in regards to that? Sure, that still the Mets need to win a game before they even get to a Game 5. But one thing that I really did have in the back of my head in terms of that is, thank God we didn't go to a Game 5 with the Phillies, because if that's what we were going to see with Senga in Game 5, we'd be sitting at home right now. So thank God we won Game 4, didn't have to go to Philly. Kodai Senga did not have that outing in Game 5. He had it in Game 1. Again, like we said, overall with that game, hopefully they can just flush it. That was awful by all means. The only positive from that game, which I don't even think I even mentioned this at all because it was just overall so bad. The only positive in that game, I think Alvarez threw out Shohei earlier in the game. Overall, it was awful. It was a terrible game. And hopefully they can flush it and go into Game 2 with a different mindset. I do trust that this team will play a better game today. This is a tough team, but when it comes to how this team has done all year, they've really been good at, completely bouncing back from these ugly losses that they have had, because even though they're in the National League Championship Series, they made the playoffs, they went on that hot streak, there has been a lot of ugly losses by this team this year. It has not been a cakewalk by any means whatsoever. If there's anything you want to add in terms of, like how game one went, I mean, there's tons of things you can unpack, but I mean, I don't even know what to say. It was just awful. It was terrible.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk more about game two and like how game one affects game two.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's kind of the tough part as far as Mendoza's standpoint is that like I could understand both sides of it. Is that okay? You want to have Senga go out there, whatever, but I'm like, if Senga's mechanics aren't there, you could start Manaea as the better option. But let's say Manaea starts because Senga's mechanics aren't quite there. They want to give him more time. Manaea makes a start. Manaea has a great start. Like, let's say go 7 scoreless. It doesn't matter because the hitting was so bad. So you started, you wasted Manaea and your
Yeah.
hitting did nothing. So now game two comes around and you have Senga versus the bullpen. But if then what could happen is you could end up 0-2. But since you let Senga get whatever the heck that was out of the way and you lost to Flaherty, now you're facing the much easier matchup in the bullpen with Manaea as your starter. So you have a much better chance at 1-1 instead of maybe being 0-2. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
That's like my only like the positive. That's the most positive I could be because other than that, like I don't understand. Like you had the other option. There was no reason to start him if you knew something was up.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a head scratcher from all accounts. I'm definitely going to say that a lot went on wrong, and it seemed like it could have been prevented, even from the offensive standpoint. Where yes, if you got all of this scoreless action from Sean Manaea instead of Kodai Senga blowing up the way that he did, the bullpen getting beat up, um, if you got like the 7 scoreless from Manaea in game one, I do think that the offense would have, kind of been a little bit better, because I do believe that yesterday, and I mean as soon as Jesse Winker got thrown out on the base pass, that game was over. That was it. You move on to game two. It was already 6-0 by that time, but any possible momentum that they could have possibly had of getting back into that game, because it was the fourth inning, so you never know, of course, they were done. They were finished. By the time it was 3-0, they didn't really get a chance. I mean, it became 6-0, all thanks to David Peterson, who I won't go after again because I know he's protected with in a safe by Mets fans these days. But I mean, speaking of like talking about with these pitchers, their job is to not be completely perfect. Their job is to keep us in the game. Pitching did not do that whatsoever, and the offense completely suffered through it. I'm not saying that it was the pitching's fault. The Mets offense was not good against Jack Flaherty, but they did have some chances as well that could have gotten them back into this game. And I feel like the tense up of them going down a lot early, I mean, you were lost at that point. I mean, at that point when Jesse Winker, like I said, got thrown out on the base paths, that game was over. That was it. That was the end of the game. They just slugged through it for the rest of the time, and they end up losing 9-0 instead of 6-0. I mean, it was a mess. It was a complete mess. And, I'm hoping that this game starts off better than it did last night, because I know we talk about it's not how you start, it's how you finish. It's not easy to come from behind against this Dodgers team. They know how to hold leads. I know that the Mets are, I think, 4-1 now when the opposing team scores first in the postseason. But again, it's really hard to sustain something like that when you have to continue to claw back like that is. I know that that's kind of been one of their identities this year, but this is a Dodgers team that you don't want to mess around with. And giving things away the way that they did, and squandering opportunities the way that they did, it all just was a recipe for an awful loss yesterday. And hopefully again, they can flush it, and then we can get into game two in regards to that. I do want to talk about, obviously, the pitching staff, of how they're going to Basically, try to avoid the blow up and try to get distance from Sean Manaea, because as of right now, where you're looking at it with the bullpen, you do have Diaz available. Reed Garrett most likely will be available, but they're only going to give him probably 1 inning. He's not great on no days rest, because we know he did come in and get 4 outs. I'm going to put him there as available, but I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see him. McGill is definitely going to be the big factor here, because when it comes to the long relief, Budo, Peterson are both unavailable now. You can't get multiple innings from Danny Young. I don't think you even want multiple innings from Danny Young, even though he was probably the best pitcher last night for us. Doesn't say much. And then we'll see how they kind of utilize it with, Maton, who's really, really struggled. There could be a possibility where you get a 4 or 5 out save from Edwin Diaz, and he's going to be called on to do the job. It all regards to what part of the lineup is due up in that sense. But again, that bottom of the lineup, it's moved up a little bit in terms of Tommy Edman now batting 6th, which is so weird to me.
They want
Max
to
Muncy
move
was moved
Muncie
down.
down more.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
moved down
lefty.
Muncy. We'll see what happens in regard to that, but they are definitely in a tight space right here. And when it comes to Sean Manaea, they are relying on some distance from him. And hopefully you do get that. But again, this Dodgers team can be tough and can work counts against you. They don't chase. So there's going to have to be a grasp on command as compared to what happened yesterday. What do you think about the bullpen going into this game? Because again, we're crunched. We're definitely crunched as compared to what happened in Game 1 with Senga starting and not doing well.
They put themselves in a situation where they're relying on Manai to go deep into the game, because if he doesn't, I don't think they have the options to really get through this Dodgers lineup unscathed or anything close to that. Like we said, Maton has had struggles literally every single outing this postseason. Garrett, even though he was really good last night, I think it's too risky to make him go back out there. I just don't see him having much effectiveness. Budo's obviously not available. So, like you said, you're left with McGill, who I just don't know what to expect from him, to be honest. And if anything, I want him more in a long relief role anyway, not like a one-off. So it's going to have to be Manaea goes deep into the game, and then it's Stanek as far as you can get me, and then like you said, Diaz as far as he can get me. And maybe you consider something of like, let's say Otani bets Teo Freeman or do up 8th inning. Maybe Diaz goes 8th and Stanek goes 9th. I mean, I would consider
Yeah.
something like that with how great that top half is. But then again, overall, Stanek's kind of been better than Diaz this postseason. So you can kind of go either way. I mean, it's a tough spot because the difference, like you said, Stanek does have the capabilities of giving up the long ball, whereas Diaz, for the most part, has been suppressing it. I just have my
Yeah.
concerns about the walks and the wild pitches. So, I mean, that's kind of one of those things you have to decide. Like, you're kind of picking your poison there.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty much different pitchers every single out. I mean that's just how relievers are. In terms of how I'm looking at it, with how this bullpen has struggled this way, I'm not really taking into account if somebody has a good outing or bad outing, because it's been had the tendency to blow up many, many times. And I'm not really someone who's just going to sit there and ride the hot hand. But as for, things like Phil Maton, where he has consistently not looked good, I definitely do think they need to be careful in how they utilize him. Maybe the top part of the order, because those are two right-handed hitters. Muncy just seems like a nightmare for him to face. And, same goes for Otani, where, you're putting cutters right into his wheelhouse. But when it comes to how they utilize this pitching, it all really depends on what you do get from Sean Manaea. I'm hoping that you don't have this as a throwaway game at any point. With Tyler McGill, we know that he's had some success against the Dodgers, but and that really is the only thing that gives me hope that you could possibly get 3 innings from him. But it's really, really hard to piece this thing together. You have the off day tomorrow, so it's a different story here. Again, it seems like the answer to this is 6 or 7 from Manaea. And to be honest, I don't think, even if Manaea doesn't even pitch, he isn't even pitching that well, they might have to push him. they might have to push him. Like, let's say he's at 5 earned runs through 6, or 5 earned runs through 5. They might have to give him the 6th inning, regardless of the volume that you get from him, because again, they're just really taxed in that point. It's all really if he is able to keep us in the game, and if the offense obviously needs to show up. Kevin Hung, I don't think I've seen you in here before, but welcome if you're new. Saying offense needs to show up. Manaea can pitch a shutout, but we would still love to
lose probably.
We would still lose probably if we can't score runs.
Exactly.
That's true. You got to score runs in this game. You know, you got to score in this game to win. You got to score more points than the other team. As I say, the genius, I quote him all the time, Josh McDaniels. You gotta score more points than the other team. That's how you win. Daniel saying JD Martinez should play today. I do think you're going to see some ABs from JD Martinez later on, especially with how the matchups are going to go. Because, you know, Winker being the liability against lefties that he is, and then JD Martinez, you know, being a lot better against both lefties and righties. But it's all really has to do with kind of how it is situationally. So we'll see. We'll see how that works in regards to that. You know, Daniel saying, I don't understand why the Mets sign a relief pitcher and they cannot pitch for the Mets. I mean, there's been some talks about how they have struggled and looked to shell out of form coming over to the Mets. I'd say that it's been half and half this year, and it's gotten better, but still we do have some problems.
At least they're not doing the multi-year deals they were doing before, like with Batanzas and Ottavino and Familia, where like they had some ugly ones that they're not doing now. And like if anything, it's they're doing a lot more like low risk, high reward plays, which is the much better bet to do with bullpen.
Yeah, obviously everything can be interchangeable. You know how inconsistent they can be. I mean, obviously Diaz was the main guy at a different caliber. Before he did get injured, I do think that again, when it comes to Diaz, and this is a completely different topic, of course, I do think that if he did not get hurt in the WBC, we would be paying that deal would be paying dividends. It would be great, but it just kind of stopped the world in regards to that. Will White coming in with some trash talk for Frank, saying Marte was one of the few that had great swings last night, but as for today's game is a must win, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Marte didn't chase, so, I mean, he looked fine. He wasn't great. Still did not get the results, but we're talking about it in terms of the postseason. But I think dissecting it the way that they could, because nothing really happened at all for the offense. He definitely did not look overmatched. It seemed like Flaherty towards the beginning there was struggling to get that slider over. Then he kind of dialed in a little bit. But, you know, it's Starling Marte is Starling Marte. We know that Jeff McNeil came into this game, had a, 55 mile an hour line out. So glad to see him back. You know, I'm okay with this lineup being the same as it was last night, only because I know that there's going to be changes with this bullpen game in regards to that. I still would have put Marte a little bit lower again. Like I'd agree with you, even when we were going back and forth in regards to McNeil yesterday. I still do agree that Starling Marte should be batting lower in this lineup. I think we all can agree of that.
So Starling Marte's last home run was June 12th. And, you know, I know we have our concerns about McNeil, but McNeil's hit plenty more home runs since June 12th. So take that what you will. I think for Marte, there's a lot going on here. One of it is health. I mean, no doubt about it. But the other thing is approach. And I wonder if old buddy Eric Chavez has gotten in Marte's head. Because when was the last time Starling Marte hit a ball to left field just in general? Because even his hits are like ground balls to the right side, soft lines to the right side. When was the last time Marte hit a ball that got past an outfielder? You know what I mean? He can't hit a triple. So for him to hit these deep fly balls to right field, it's not going out. So what's the point? He's better off being a ground baller to the right side, because that's what he's become at this stage. They're only throwing him outside pitches. He can't pull it. So like at least in McNeil, like you may have your criticisms, but like a liner to second base that was hit softly, like that's a McNeil AB. With Marte, I feel like there is no plan. Like he doesn't have much going for him right now. He actually needs to hit the ball soft because he's not gonna be able to hit it out. So why would he go for these hard swings?
I think it's half and half regarding Marte right now with his approach because half of it I think is you know the age obviously, and I still just don't think his lower half is healthy. It just
Yeah,
still does not seem
yeah.
like it's
It
healthy
doesn't generate
whatsoever.
stuff. It doesn't generate
One
power. Nothing.
thing to talk about with power, I will say, Starling Marte has a home run against Ryan Brazier. So if he did
That's
it
if
once, he'll
Ryan
do it
Brazier
again.
throws it on the inner part of the plate. If he throws on the outside part of the plate, it's not
Yeah,
going out.
he's
I
he's
mean,
a he's
that's
a
what it
strike
comes down
thrower.
to.
So they're gonna get
Yeah.
their
But the
opportunities.
Mets did exactly what I said not to do. I mean, it was especially Taylor. I mean, I hate to bag on the guy, but Tyrone Taylor got a hanging slider at 87 miles an hour and was out in front of it and popped it up behind home plate. Like the
Yeah.
pitches that the Mets got, like I saw Alonso doing it, like always, he takes strike one, he takes strike two. A lot of these guys, they're taking taking first pitch strike, and then Flair did. Is that what they're gonna do? Slider, knuckle curve in the dirt. I mean, just over and over, and they
Yep.
were not aggressive in those counts where they're just falling behind, and then they get fastball outside corner. Marte got caught looking at one. Alonso got caught looking at one. Vientos got caught in the under part of the plate. Then just on two strikes, they're just watching on the corners, taking on the corners, bam, bam, bam. Like I don't know. A lot of times, the best pitches they're getting are one of the first two pitches, and those are the ones they're not swinging at. And then they just put themselves in these counts where he hits one on the corner, you're out. Like it was rough. I mean, I talked about they need to change the approach. The approach they have was not going to work against Flaherty,
Yep.
and they just stuck with it.
Yeah, and I do have some keys to this game regarding a change in approach, which is very similar to what you just said in regards to that, especially going up against this Dodger bullpen that does throw a lot of strikes. But in regards to how they faced Flaherty, they fell behind very, very early, and Jack Flaherty took that into account and basically just went on a roll. I mean, I don't even know how to really explain that. And they just basically looked dead. They were dead on arrival because in that first inning they were already they were already playing from behind. We know this team has done well from playing from behind, but again, from the other side with the Dodgers, they know how to hold leads as compared to teams like Philly or teams like the Braves. I mean, this is a different level of talent you're looking at. They do have the weaknesses that you need to try and exploit. But on a good day, the Dodgers are getting the job done in the pitching department. We know that even though they have taken a lot of injuries this year, they still got great pitchers. And, they've always been a pitcher's franchise. This has always been the deal. When it comes to regarding something like, a Dodgers Mets series, I do believe that there always is a blowout in a series whenever they play them, whether it's in the playoffs or the regular season, whether it's coming from the Dodgers side or the Mets side. We have seen these teams blow each other out. Then we've had pitching battles, and then we've also had a lot of controversy as well. Not just the Tejada Utley stuff. We've had fans point lasers at Max Muncy. We've had so many weird things happen with Mets Dodgers. So we got the blowout out of the way. I'm glad that we got it out in game 1 and not in a game 7 or a winner go home game. But the Mets do have to figure it out, and they need to fire back. And all I can say is one thing, though. If they do end up winning this game, they will have all the momentum going back home. They will have all of it, and all of it will be flushed from game 1.
And maybe this will make Met fans feel a little better. The last time that Jack Flaherty made the start was against the Padres. The Dodgers lost that game 10-2, and the Dodgers still came back to win the series. So that's just kind of the way it can go. I mean, like
Yeah.
it really could just be one day you're getting killed, and the next day you win the game. I mean, that's just kind of the series in general. That happens like in other sports too. So that's why game 2 is always big. If it happens again today, oh, I'm flipping out and I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
we could just kind of clean up and do what we've been doing, because again, the Dodgers, we're going to see Evan Phillips, maybe see Blake Trinan. Hudson pitched yesterday already. He wasn't too great. So maybe they'll run him back out there. But overall, like, this is your opportunity. I mean, like Brazier, Banda, like these other guys, like, come on, you gotta put something together. We can't be going scoreless. Like Manaea, they're gonna need him to be an ace. Like there's no other choice. So they're gonna have to step up. They've been, like we said, they've been here before. Tough, and the toughest scenarios usually when they play their best. So this is the time. I mean, this is your opportunity. This is your game to really, like you said, take it and go into Citi Field feeling much, much better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the effect will be of having Jeff McNeil on the roster in terms of the vibes now, because when you think about it, every time that they've made the playoffs in the Mets' career, they've lost game ones with Jeff McNeil on the roster. So I think that this might be wraps, guys. I think that's it. I already told you he was going to ruin it all. What did I tell you? I don't know what to tell you. It has nothing to do with the Dodgers being a great team. It really just it's really just all Jeff McNeil's fault at the end of the day. All right, so some players to watch that I do want to add in here. Obviously, the Dodgers have had a lot of success against Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea is a completely different pitcher, obviously lowering the arm angle. We know that Chris Sale has pitched very well against the Dodgers this year, thanks to our fellow podcaster, Anthony Rivera, for digging up some of that information for us. We know that Chris Sale was one of the main influences to Sean Manaea's changing that arm angle. And when it comes to other matchups, Mookie Betts, 10 for 32 against Sean Manaea. They faced him a lot when he was in San Francisco. 2 doubles, 2 triples, and 2 homers. You also have Will Smith, who has struggled all year, but he does have quite the career as well against Manaea. 9 for 18 with a double. Like I said, Starling Marte against Ryan Brazier, even though he's probably only going to face him twice or once. He does have a home run against him, but he's only faced him twice. And then you look at the bottom third of that lineup for the Mets. Jose Iglesias, Tyrone Taylor, and Francisco Alvarez have never faced Ryan Brazier before. We'll see if he gets to them. Maybe he only faces 6 batters. Who knows? But that's the main reason as to probably why the lack of experience or something like that. Most likely, Starling Marte is batting 5th in the sense that he does have a home run against Ryan Brazier, but like we have said, we have not seen any power from Starling Marte ever since he came back, from his injury, what was it, the bone bruise or something? I forget what it was.
Yeah, it was something weird. It was a knee. I forget. I remember it was the weird injury because I was flipping out about what happened in June. It was like something I never heard. It was like a really weird thing.
Yeah.
It was like,
and it is a shame because he was hitting the ball really well before that
I think it was
happened.
like bone inflammation or something like that. It was like really weird.
Something like that. I don't know. But it was a shame because he was hitting the ball really well before he came back. He's still not the Starling Marte that we saw in 2022, but he was a contributor to this offense and one of the main reasons as to why the outfield was really stepping up a lot towards the beginning of the season. So hopefully he can channel that somehow. I don't know, but again, I still would not put him in the 5 spot at this current moment. But when it comes to the overall matchup in for Ryan Brazier, obviously they're not going to see him for a big majority of the game, even though if he cruises through, because he's pretty much a reliever, even though he has made starts in the past. Muttley and Love saying Carson will always come up with an excuse to hate on McNeil. Silly, absolutely. What, you want me to deny that? I mean, come on. But, when it comes to Brian Brazier, of course, this is going to be a bullpen game. They're not going to face him that much, but hopefully they can set the tone a lot better than they did last night. When it comes to Ryan Brazier, he is a 4-pitch right-hander. He is primarily throwing sliders 42% of the time, 4-seam 29%, 16% sinker, 12% cutter. His best graded pitch is his sinker that sits about 94 to 95, tops 96, has the heavy 2-seam action with over 15 inches of glove side run. For those of you who are the stat nerds that like the grades, 104 stuff plus, 106 command plus, and a 115 pitching plus. So he definitely has a huge grasp on his contact management. Overall, with the rest of his arsenal, a gyro hybrid slider with over 2,400 RPMs, mid 90s fastball that tops 96 with over 16 inches of induced vertical break, and a low 90s cutter with some late tumble, also known as late tumble fastball or cut fastball. So as for some other notes you can put in here, he does throw from a very high angle, let's just say that, which he prefers to work up in the zone and challenge hitters. He does have the plus control, does not walk many, but he can walk some guys from time to time. It's a little spotty back and forth, but he does have great command of his secondary pitches. Like we said, he gets a lot of chases. And even though he doesn't have the heavy swing and miss stuff, he does know how to expand the zone. He does know how to get chases, especially against the right-handed hitters. So guys like we've talked about it before with Marte, Alonso sometimes it's Vientos. That's definitely something to look out for. He does excel at getting right-handed hitters to roll over to the left side with a 54.5% ground ball rate induced against that platoon. His fastball and slider have registered, though, a hard hit rate over 50% this season, so he definitely gives up a lot of contact when he leaves a lot of things over the plate. Left-handers are posting a 760 OPS versus Brazier this season, even though it is a little bit of a small sample with 28 innings. And Brazier has faced the Mets 8 times in his career, 7 1/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. So definitely a contact managing look for the Mets in their first matchup of Game 2, obviously with other guys coming in with the bullpen game. We know that, the left-hander Vesia, he got hurt, so they're definitely going to replace in out his innings. So we'll see how the lack of lefty, bodes well for the Dodgers on that side, and maybe that does give the Mets a little bit of an advantage. We know that Anthony Banda, the former Met, has, of course, just become a god now, tossing 99 from the side slot. It's always just looking at that from the one that got away, but we know that Anthony Banda was fucking awful as a Met, and he was not going to succeed here. So maybe we do get revenge against him. Maybe he does get revenge against us. But we'll see. In terms of the bullpen, again, this is a good Dodgers bullpen. There are some weaknesses to it. But when it comes to Ryan Brazier, definitely the type of player, definitely the type of pitcher that will allow you to attack early if you get those certain pitches. What do you think about the approach against Brazier? Obviously, you're going to have other pitchers in here, but Brazier to start it off to set the tone.
So the last time Brazier pitched, he had the opener against the Padres. He went 4 outs. So in this case, I could see him going maybe 5 outs because the next guy that came in after Brazier was Banda. So I could see a scenario where Brazier gets the first 5 batters, and then when the lefty Winker comes up, you go Banda. What the Mets do there, I don't know, because they have not let Winker face a lefty in this postseason yet. Which, again, if you're literally looking at the last time the Dodgers did the bullpen game, why would you start Winker if you know you have to take him out immediately, or just automatically put his first at-bat in a bad scenario? Makes no sense to me. But, okay, So let's just say that happens. With Brazier, I do have a few concerns here. Number one, his primary pitch is the slider. Right-handed on that outside part of the play, which, like you mentioned, with Vientos struggles, Alonso, Marte, pretty much all the right-handed hitters in this lineup. So already that's a bad sign. Also, some of the other pitches that he's utilizing, the sinker, the cutter, those are coming up and in on the right-handed hitters. Very uncomfortable at bats. So I just see that being just a very tough time. I can see Alonso. I don't know. I could just see the at bat in my head already. I can see like sinker inside, cutter inside. Alonso just does his little shoulder thing, takes strike 1, takes strike 2. Then all of a sudden, slider away, goodbye. Like I could see a very common at bat because, like you said, you're only going to see him once, so you got to take advantage of that. You're not going to try to work the count or try to tire him out because he's coming out anyway. So the guys that I'm looking at here, I'm looking at Lindor. He needs to set the tone. He needs to get things started. If he gets a fastball he likes, if he gets a slider that somehow hangs in his wheelhouse, he needs to destroy it. I mean, there is no trying to take a walk here. I need him to be aggressive. Nimmo, I don't know what's going on with him now with the plantar fasciitis. He's not comfortable at the plate right now. So he's still gotten on base in just about every game. So we'll see what he could provide you. But for me, I need Lindor to be the one to step up. I pray that maybe he hangs a cutter or a fastball to Vientos. But overall, I could see him really going slider heavy against those right-handers. And then obviously same goes for Marte. He's just going to hang out in that outside part of the plate. We'll see what Marte does with it. Maybe try to hit on the ground because you're not going to be able to do much in the air. And then that's really going to be it because then he's going to be gone. And then, like you said, Banda's going to come in and throw in gas. And then we'll kind of see what their approach is from there. The next guy that came in was Kopech. And we know Kopech is also a very tough matchup with his velo. So it's not going to be easy. Like, even though this is a bullpen game, you're still not facing like easy pitchers per se. Like we said, Veja is gone. I don't know if they're going to go Honeywell or somebody else because they still had to use Evan Phillips and Blake Shrine in that game, even with Veja going like an inning and two-thirds. So I'm kind of curious to see who that other arm is going to be. But overall, like, it's better opportunities, but it still isn't full on easy. It's still not the greatest matchup for these particular med hitters.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, it's going to be a lot of adjustments, of course, and the Mets are just going to have to make them. Hopefully, we get some Jeremy Barnes conferences and they don't touch Eric Chavez with a 10-foot pole. Let's just say that. Daniel coming in saying happy Monday, everyone. Of course. Again, another loyal viewer here to our show. We apologize if there's a little bit of disconnect here. If there's a little bit of spottiness. We have been dealing with it in and out all day so far for the 50 minutes that we've been live. Sometimes it's a little bit spotty, but you guys have said that you can hear us, just not as clear. And, there's been some frames dropping in and out, but hopefully we can figure that out by the post game, of course. But regarding, these other things, Brazier definitely can have a lack of command. He does have some of the spread out, let's just say that, as terms to his secondary stuff. All you just have to do is not offer at it and don't let him expand the zone that he does. But when we come to him facing possibly 4 or 5 batters, they do have to set the tone quick, of course, because then they're going to start going into matchups. I do think that Winker starting does not mean really anything personally, because they lost Vesia. So they only have one lefty in Anthony Banda, who I do think they're going to probably save for a little bit later in this game. Just because I know that they can probably get some more long relief from somebody like Brent Honeywell, who I believe was a starter at one point. So they're probably going to go to him first, maybe. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the Dodgers' game plan is. They do have a lack of lefty things, so I think they're going to probably go to more high leverage with Banda for the lefty-lefty matchup, which there isn't really many of them in the Mets lineup. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. We probably will end up having them put in Banda in for Winker, but probably later on in this game, and that's probably when you bring in JD Martinez for the fact there. So, I don't know how they're going to approach that in that way, but we'll see how they do that.
They also
But when
have
it comes
Landon
to,
Knack, who has starter experience too. Like, he made starts for them this season. So they do
yeah,
have multiple long men. So, I mean, they could do
yeah,
something like that where, like you said, they could go Brazier and then Honeywell. Like that. That's also a possibility. But I feel like they're going to try to keep it as similar to the last bullpen game they did, because it was very effective for them. I mean, they did that bullpen game and gave up 0 runs. So I could try to see them maybe sticking with that same approach.
yeah. But, Dave Roberts, you never know when he has something up his sleeve the way that he is. But we'll see. Again, it all really is just going to be, pitch by pitch, A B by A B. Pitch count is not really that big of a factor in terms of this game, and I will get into that regarding something with the keys into this game. But when it comes to other pieces of information that I do want to put out there, we obviously talked about Brandon Nimmo, of course. He's been playing through a foot injury ever since he had it since like game 3 of the Phillies series. He is expected to play through it. So most likely you're not going to see him running the bases. You're not going to see him going full force. You can't, it doesn't seem like you can move Nimmo to center field at any point and, rely on anybody to take the corners. So you're definitely going to rely on defensively Bader and Taylor in that regard. And it seems like that has been the situation here. We all know how I feel about putting Jeff McNeil in the outfield these days, but I just don't
They
think
have the same
the
arm,
corner is.
so it's not a crazy idea.
Well, he doesn't have the same arm to Marte. That's
No, no, no. I'm
basically how
saying
I
I'm
look
saying
at it.
McNeil
Yeah,
Nemo. Like, if you wanted to give Nemo some rest on the feet and have McNeil go there for a little bit, you could. But
yeah,
still, I feel like honestly, if they didn't tell me about the Nimmo thing, I wouldn't have known about it, especially like you said, if it's been
Yeah.
bothering him since game 3. I haven't noticed like, oh, Nimmo doesn't seem to be moving correctly. Like I didn't even know that. So I feel like, I had plantar fasciitis. It's painful. It's annoying, but I don't think it's going to be like with Freeman where the man is literally limping across the bases. Like it's a different kind of injury.
Yeah, it seems like it's been coming and going for him ever since that he experienced the injury. So it's something to monitor. We'll see what happens. They do have the extra position player now, bringing in Jeff McNeil, so they definitely have that type of luxury per se. Even though I don't consider Jeff McNeil a luxury, but when it comes to something like the extra position player, and that's probably the main reason as to why they went to the extra position player regarding Nimmo and his current health at this current point. So it's something to monitor. Let's just say that. But I don't really see any situation where I'm just taking Nimmo out for McNeil for any reason, because he is one of our best hitters, whether you're looking at it from how he struggled or just overall track record. I do trust Nimmo at the plate probably more than anybody besides Lindor or maybe Vientos. Like, I do trust Nimmo at the plate still. Obviously, situationally, he's been great. But we'll see how they kind of wrap that thing up, of course. But as for other keys to this game, hopefully we don't drop out of here with awful connection. For some reason, it still has been going in and out and in and out. So we'll try and fight through this one, and then I'll try to, I'll try to find a way to fix this for the post game, because it has been very spotty throughout this entire stream. So obviously, for the keys to this game, this is going to be a bullpen game, so it's definitely something to look out for. But you are relying on Sean Manaea to give you a lot of quality, and this is the best way that I can look at it from there. Southpaw Gas. Otani has a lot of high whiff rates against left-handed pitching, specifically against velocity. Of course, from that angle against lefties, Otani is still good, but there is a little bit of a 50 percentile weakness. Let's just say that. The Dodgers are top 5 in pretty much every offensive category against left-handed pitching. But the two key hitters, Shohei Otani and Freddie Freeman, come with a lot of swing and miss against velocity from the left side. Against left-handed pitching, Otani has as for those whiff rates against fastballs, 41.1%, against sinkers, 38.6%, and against cutters, 39.4% for Freeman, 31.7% against fastballs, 45.6% against sinkers from the left side, and 33.8% whiff rate versus cutters. The only problem here is that if you challenge these two prolific bats, it needs to be high and tight, and it needs to be high and away. Again, like we have said many, many times, avoid the A swing. Get them to the B swing and the C swing. Even though it's really good and they're great hitters, it's the best bet. You cannot give them anything to pull or lift. Pitch shape is key to having this being executed correctly. And as we all know, no Mets starting staff member right now has better fastball and sinker shape than Sean Manaea. As for the offensive side, pull or surge, it's easy. Pete Alonso has quite the recipe to feast today. And there are really no excuses when it comes to the Mets' big slugger. With the Dodgers going with a bullpen game today, the tendencies are right in Alonso's wheelhouse to make some noise today. This season, Dodger relievers are throwing fastballs at a 58.6% clip this season, and they're also bottom 5 in breaking ball whiff rate, while they're also 6th in home runs surrendered and the highest fly ball rate. Alonso will likely get a lot of chances to drive the ball out of the park. The Dodgers bullpen has really struggled to bully right-handed hitters with the outside breaking ball this season. To me, that's just code for Alonso's time to feast on the Dodgers staff today. And as for more of the offense, just in general, this Dodger bullpen does not walk many batters. And I'm looking at this as the counter attack to that. as they are sixth this season in zone rate and fourth this season in first pitch strike rate. Hitters are slashing 202, 276, 348 against the Dodgers bullpen when in two strike counts. Don't be afraid to swing first pitch, as hitters have a 314 batting average on balls in play versus the Dodgers bullpen this season. Pitch count is not a factor in a bullpen game. Take advantage of hitters' counts. Try not to fall behind. Take that initiative. Do not wait for the golden opportunity to come to you. Don't wait for the defense to screw up. Attack when they attack you. Fight power with power. Now, as for these keys to the game, obviously this is kind of the anti of what the Mets did with their offense, of course. We're expecting Manaea to come up big here. But if there's any other notes that you want to add going into this game, Frank, what do you think about this current situation for Game 2?
I do want to see the hitters be more aggressive, but unfortunately, I don't think they're all of a sudden going to change their approach today. I feel like we're too late in the year. I mean, we are now in the NLCS Game 2, so they've gotten this far with what they've been doing, even though there are times I think you should change it. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to. I kind of don't like to go into a game hoping that a pitcher is going to hang a pitch and then you do something with it. Like, that's really not something you want to rely on. So I think overall, it's like, how do you get Freddie Freeman out? How do you make sure that's how you not hit the ball 100 miles an hour? Like, they got to figure something out. I mean, they really have got to make sure that, like I said before, these guys in the bottom half of the order are not crushing you, because if they could get those guys out and they're not bunting guys over and stuff like that, then maybe you could try to work around some of these guys, because you'll just never get Freddie Freeman out. I mean, as long as this man is playing the New York Mets, he is going to get on base, no matter if he has one leg, two legs, three legs. I don't know. Like, this guy is just always going to get hits. So, and now you're trying, like, he was good against Manaea in the past, different arm slot, whatever. But overall, it just is very frustrating when you're seeing like the same stuff over and over. Listen, I love to see Pete get something going, especially if Nimmo has a little bit of an injury going on. I wonder kind of what's going to happen with Taylor. I feel like I've said it before, but this man is hitting like, was it 120 overall the whole postseason? He's like one for his last 17. I just don't know how long you can stick with that. It's tough with the Nimmo injury. You can't move him to center, but I don't know. I feel like you could have started JD Martinez in this game and then maybe pinch hit Winker and then gone Bader if the situation calls for it. I feel like there were like other alternatives. So this is what they're sticking with. It's gotten this far, so hopefully they can just kind of pull another rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah. Again, we have the more of a deeper bench going into this series, obviously with the decision to elect for another position player instead of Adam Ottavino. We'll see how that pans out regarding the health of Kodai Senga, regarding the health of Brendan Nimmo, because we have heard many times this happen with Mets players playing through injury, and then they find a way to just re-aggravate it right out the gate. So hopefully this is not as big of a factor. Like we have said, I have never had the plantar fasciitis. I've never had it, so I wouldn't know. But from what I'm hearing from multiple people is that it's very painful. So hopefully, there's a way that they can work around this. We know that Nimmo has had his struggles this year. He has had his high moments. We'll see how it works. It seems like Brandon Nimmo seems to play better when something's not going his way. Didn't he have like the flu and walk off the Braves? The undercooked chicken. He had like a 3-hit game the next day.
Fell in the
This
hotel
team
room,
has
passing
done
out,
well.
got the game-winning hits.
Yep.
Like,
this team makes no sense. Okay, that's all we're trying to tell you. This team makes absolutely no sense. But in regards to that, I am hoping that they somewhat can figure out this Dodgers bullpen as to what they give to them. I'm hoping that they are aggressive in terms of when pitch count is not a factor here. Let's just say that. I'm just going at it in terms of the efficiency of what we've seen this year. But again, even if you give a high fastball to Shohei Ohtani or Freddie Freeman, there still is a possibility they crush the thing. I mean, it's not like it's a guarantee. But in terms of these overall rates and everything, that's pretty much all that you really can get in terms of the lefty-lefty matchup that you have with Sean Manaea, which we know that Manaea has been money against left-handed hitters this year, even though he's been against right-handed as well. But from the lefty-lefty, he is frustrated a lot, and I mean a lot of left-handed hitters this year. Left-handed hitters this year against Manaea. Let's see. Yeah, left-handed hitters. It looks like a sub 620 OPS if I'm doing that math correctly. So they've definitely struggled against him. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. Lane saying, do you bring in Edwin Diaz for game 2 today for the Mets? It all really depends on what the situation is. If it's a close game, you got to go to your best bullet. Let's just say that. CR Dudley saying, one note, if the Dodgers blank you guys, they'll hold the record for the postseason consecutive scoreless inning streak. They have like 33 consecutive scoreless innings. So
most of them came against the Dodgers. I mean, most of them came against the Padres. So
yeah, definitely.
I mean, if they get against us,
we
whatever.
We got caught in the crosshairs with that one. So, again, we are going to have to snap that streak if we're going to win this game. So they're going to have to find a way. Let's just say that. As for some other news that we got regarding the Kodai Senga stuff, they said there is currently no momentum for the Mets to remove Kodai Senga from the NLCS roster. So that's kind of how we're looking at it right now. They still don't need to make a decision now because we don't even know if there's going to be a Game 5 because it hasn't been forced yet. So I feel like that's kind of how you're going to look at it in terms of it. And it's smart, obviously, to not make that panic move when you know you don't have to do it yet. We have Alonso and Scott Boras chatting at Dodger Stadium, talking about how they can milk as much money as they possibly can. But we also did get news after this. Thank you for this reminder. Let's just say this. Severino has flown home early to prep for his start for Game 3. So he has 2 more days of rest in terms of that. So he will be getting the Game 3 start. Hopefully, we're tied by the time that happens. And then, of course, Kodai Senga, we already talked about that. Brandon Nimmo, something to monitor again. And then pretty much that should be it. I think we can wrap it up here. 4 o'clock, 4:08, I believe, is the Eastern time start for this game. We'll give you guys a little bit of a breather for a few minutes going into this game. As for those of you in the chat here, it looks like 56% of you are saying that the Mets are going to win Game 2. The Dodgers, 26%, and 18% of you are pleading the fifth. You do not want to jinx it whatsoever, and you've been going with that answer probably the entire time if you're a superstitious type of guy. And going into a Mets game, we already know that there's always going to be pre-game jitters. But as for that, hopefully we can even up this series. Play a better baseball game than you did yesterday. Let's just say that. And that's pretty much the key. Make sure to tune in later on after the game, about 15 to 20 minutes after the game. We will be going live for our podcast, also known as our post game for this game, and break down pretty much everything that went on. Hopefully it is good news as compared to what it was yesterday. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, on TikTok, all that great stuff. Links are in the description, including our third co-host, Andrew, who has actually been sick the last few days. So send your best regards to Andrew. So most likely we won't see him for the post game regarding that. But we'll see if he wants to fight through it. Like his guy, Brandon Nimmo, usually does. And he's doing it once again with his left foot. But other than that, again, enjoy the game, everybody. Make sure to relax again. And I don't even know what else I can really put out there. Frank, is there anything else that you want to add going into this game?
Hit the ball hard and good things happen.
That'd be nice. It would be nice to see that. That is a definitely good piece of advice. We'll see if they take it. Definitely score a run, and we'll already be in the better column than we are in game one. All right. We'll see you guys after the game. Let's go Mets, and enjoy postseason baseball. Hopefully, we can bounce back and tie this thing up going into Citi Field. We'll see you guys next time.